On July 7th, 2025, the planet of discord, surprise, erraticness, rebellion will enter the swift air sign of Gemini for several months this year to give us a hint about what will happen in the Gemini part of our chart for the next 7 years. This is a monumental moment for the astrology of 2025. We're going to get a brief insight to what this is. So, as the fireworks go off right about me, surprisingly, popping off, that energy, that popping off out of the blue is about to enter the Gemini part of your world, your chart. Listen, Uranus is a catalyst. It is a rebellious planet. It represents rebellion. It doesn't like any rules. As a matter of fact, if you think about the planets before in a solar system, it's Saturn. It creates the boundaries and rules and crystallizes things. And Uranus pretty much wants to like smash all of that. And that's one part of the energy. But really, in the end, it brings like an alternative, unstable, and unpredictable story that comes into the Gemini part of your chart. So I'll explain this briefly a little bit more, then I'm going to talk about what it means for each sign in a brief way. One thing I want you to understand is something like this you can't really plan on, and I think you have to incorporate in your life what it means to change and to be ready for change and how you deal with it in the moment. And that is something the sign of Gemini does very well. It lives that way. It's a mutable air sign moving from one place to another. It seems to be random, but along with the wind, you have the input then of an electrical, spontaneous, erratic planet like Uranus in the sign of Gemini, and it's almost like a bump to the duality, mutability, and the trickster quality of Gemini. And I would even say that Uranus has its own version of playing games for the sole purpose to mess with things, just to do it. And if there's anything that's conformed or put together, it will want to smash that and put it into pieces. You take all of that with the element of surprise and unpredictability, and you have a massive transit that's starting here, but really is going to forecast into the future of the next 7 years in the Gemini part of your chart. All right, let's just jump into it. I want to read a couple key words to you. Outsider, surprising, unstable, breaking, the word breaking with Uranus, unconventional, this is very important, unconventional, unrest, the future. Here's some Gemini keywords: articulate, playful, curious, tricky, adaptable, versatile, restless. The reporter of stories, that's really important here. It's communication in the word with Gemini, right? How things get from one place to another, how those thoughts and words formulate in your brain, and then how they're communicated. Gemini rules this. If I combine the two together, I would say the catalyst is the two words that sum up these two for right now, for this next 6 months into spring of 2026, okay? I mentioned before, July 7th, 2025, that's when Uranus will go into Gemini. It will go retrograde September 5th, 2025, in a massive month astrology-wise. September of 2025 is huge, but Uranus will go retrograde. It will go back to 0 degrees November 7th, and then it will go all the way back into Taurus. It isn't until April 25th of 2026 that Uranus will go back to 0 degrees Gemini to really start the 7-year journey there. So I wanted to give you a quick timeline, and if you notice, it just inches in this year and then goes back into Taurus, which means it's just the first chapter. It's not in the 7-year story. So the way I'm looking at this thing in this video here is I'll talk about what it means for each rising sign, but from a brief level, for an initiatory question I'm going to pose for you and to think about, because Gemini deals with questions and questioning things in many different ways. What is the truth of something? Is it one version of one truth or another person's one truth? Is it the darker side of the truth or the lighter side, the underworld or the outer world? This is Gemini movement, and this is what Gemini does when questioning things, all right? So let's get to it. You know, for me, I want to say here first before I start that this is very personal for me because it's affecting my world right now already. And I feel like I have a particular insight and things have been revealing themselves to me. So, and that's an ongoing process. And that is the point too of being present and aware for things to reveal themselves, to oneself, but you don't know when it's going to happen, it seems. And that's the energy you have to understand and stand in. or walk towards to, or take a step back from, that kind of thing. Knowing that it's somewhere electrical around and at any point can hit you like a lightning bolt hits a tree, will hit your brain. Gemini, hit your brain or the Gemini part of your chart. So let's jump in. I want to start with Aries Risings. Listen, the first question, I'm going to pose this question to you. What is a new way to communicate or to do languaging? This is what I wrote. The reason is this Uranus transit in Gemini is affecting a part of your chart that deals with languaging and how you write and how you communicate. It also deals with like siblings in your friend group and your immediate surroundings. But a lot of times our languaging and communicating or writing is firing off in these immediate places around us, and especially with other people and friends and etc. This will be very important. Now, understand that Uranus's role is to rebel a lot of times and to shake things up. Could you be saying things you don't normally do? No, you're going to tell an Aries Rising, by the way, to shake things up in one weird way. They're all for it, right? But do you say what you really are thinking? Do you experiment and take a different viewpoint when it comes to communicating and writing? The question is, what is a new way to communicate? And that is your question. I do want to say, because Saturn's in your first house right now, and Aries will be here kind of touching this story, and next spring when Uranus goes back into Gemini, that in effect, it actually has to do with how your vitality is and how you're walking and viewing the world. So it's very important, a connection of how you walk and view in the world, and then what you have to communicate in a sense. But start with the question, what is a new way to communicate? How I do languaging, okay? And that's your quick question. Taurus Rising, special connection to you all. This particular Uranus transit is about to bring in a 7-year story that has to do with, resource creation. And I'll tell you right off the bat, before I get to the question to pose for yourself, is how would you feel if I gave you $100 out of the blue? And then next week I told you that you had to pay me $100 out of the blue. And then you had to keep doing this motion. That resources came in and money came in, and then all of a sudden money got taken out, or you had to pay something that came out of the blue. The $100 I gave you, next week your brakes went out and you had to put it towards your brakes in your car. And this type of energy, this erraticness, is what is in store for the money house, but most importantly, let's call it the resource creation part of your world. And it's for you to understand something on a deeper level, okay? The question I wrote here is, how can I change my thinking towards resource creation? It's a thinking mechanism here of how you do this. Is it a new piece of work that you're doing? Is it a new job that you create for yourself that creates wealth and income? Is it a different way of looking at what you value within yourself and how that reflects in the outside world? But you must ponder this question about how, the way I wrote it here, how can I change the way I think towards resource creation? Okay, and that's your question to ponder this year. And when Uranus goes into Gemini, it's going to play around here. You might get some hints of this, but I want you to be in the questioning phase with this, and I want you to be open to what comes in when you're trying to answer the question, even if you do not get a definite answer, okay? And as the fireworks go off in your second house in the next so many years, you have already taken the steps of like, well, if I am looking for new ways for resource creation, I can maybe do it this way, or there's that way, or I have to take this out and put this in. So when things come in and out of the blue in your money resource creation house, you'll have a bit more fluidity, and you need that being a fixed rising sign as Taurus, okay? And resource creation is huge for you. I also wrote here, money flashes in, money flashes out, okay? That is your question to ponder. Next, Gemini Rising. Out of any sign that's about to get the lightning bolt just put straight into their mind and their heart, it is you. And I'm not just talking about Gemini Risings, I'm talking about Gemini Suns, Mercury Geminis. But you Gemini Risings, this is huge. Off the bat, I want you to look in the mirror, or you could do this now, or stop, or go look in the mirror after the video is done, and I want you to go look in the mirror, and I want you to take note of what you look like. And try not to judge yourself. Maybe it's 9 in the morning, I'm taking a shower yet. Maybe you're watching this video at 2 a.m. Okay, so give yourself a break on that. But I want you to go look in the mirror and just take note of what you look like, who you are, right? Because this Uranus transit is about to come in and shake you to the core, to actually your appearance, your vitality, how you actually shoot out into the world as a Gemini rising. The question I posed for you, and I'm posing for you, what is your conformed appearance? Or you could say this another way, how can I use my appearance to be non-conforming? So this is a weird one, but I gave you two questions to flip around as a Gemini rising, because Uranus a lot of times comes in to smash what has become normal, to liberate it, to shake it up. And the reason why I brought in the words non-conforming is like, there's the way every other Gemini looks, or the way other people look. How do you want to look? You might give yourself a different haircut, different wardrobe. It might be that you start working out. It might be that the way you think about yourself when you look at yourself in the mirror, this is really important, changes. And you have to be willing to change that. Even though you're the master of change, of mutability, and going from different characters, different moods in a flash, it's how you do that. And is it healthy for you, right? So I want you to ponder a question again. Well, before I get to that, I wrote the multiple changing of appearances. The world will see it. You could tell when I'm making this video. Where is your mind directed? What is your non-conforming appearance? Are you rebelling? So you get a little bit of clue there what this is. This is very important. We also know you got some help from Pluto and Aquarius on this one, okay? So you have to get that. It's in a way, it has to do with a deeper truth, okay? So again, Gemini risings, we're gonna be looking at you to see how this Uranus transit is. All the rest of the astrological signs, you're gonna be on stage with this one, okay? So remember, be comfortable with riding the lightning. Don't be afraid to take chances with how you leap and fly into the world. Whether you got to change the appearance, but most importantly, it's how you think about yourself, how you think you look, and play with that, okay? In a sense, you're going to be the herald here for the next 7 years when it deals with the Uranus and Gemini situation. And in one sense, in the outside world, when it comes to the social world and social groups and how people are appearing there, you're going to be the freak in it all, and you need to embrace that and take it in and love it. But first, you have to look at yourself in the mirror, take note of who you are now, and question yourself. Let's go to Cancer risings. Cancer risings, you have an interesting situation here because this Uranus transit, it's happening while you're having a massive Jupiter transit happening in your first house. It's elevating you, right? It's elevating the moon in your chart, the planet that rules your rising sign, wherever the moon is. And you have this massive Jupiter transit happening in 2025 into 2026, but all of a sudden Uranus comes in here to like shake things up in the place of your chart that's kind of hidden. And it's kind of like, it actually be real with you. It has to do with things that you cannot see. In one sense, we could say the unconscious. We have the conscious and the unconscious. We don't know what's happening in the unconscious. We get a glimpse of it sometimes in the outside world or through dreams or through journaling. I mean, something usually triggers something that will leak from the unconscious and reveal itself at some time, right? But what if I tell you some of those revealing of the unconscious happened, it seemed to be randomly, or tested you, or those things when they did come up out of the blue, you all of a sudden had to deal with, and they were pretty deep and at times heavy. What would you do with those types of surprising unconscious displays from within? How would you deal with something like this, right? So I wrote, what is an unconventional outlet to and for my unconscious, right? And that's what I wrote. Hint, it's about being in the crab cave. And the reason why I'm posing this question and I'm saying the crab cave is because the part of your chart where Uranus is going in, this is the 12th house, this has to do with a isolated place, a rehabilitative place. And it's there, can you confront this unconscious? And a lot of times with stories like this, we create situations in our life, let's say the Cancer Risings will, that you're just not even thinking about this, but you're creating situations in your life and all of a sudden you find yourself trapped or you find yourself cornered. And you realize that it was by your own doing, that you realize that you put yourself there. And in those places, all of a sudden you have certain things coming up on the fly, instinctually, right? Impulsively. So all of a sudden things come up and then you're like, well, wait a second. And then you got to go deal with that. What I'm telling you is you got to go inside the crab shell, or what's representative in your life is a hidden place to ponder that subconscious hint or story that has appeared out of the blue. And not only that, I think you should write about it to yourself, and I think you should find other neutral people to communicate or to bring in tools to help you access your unconscious so you can deal with that story. Again, a lot of times in the outside world, you might find yourself in a situation that you created and you don't understand why, and you're at a loss and you're feeling deeply about it. Go find the help. Go find the rehabilitative crab cave for yourself to swim in those waters. Use the magic of Mercury, which rules Gemini, to move from the unconscious to the conscious and back and forth. And that's what Gemini does. And Uranus brings a liberating, shocking force in this area for 7 years. But we're just at the beginning of the story. Just take in the question. What are unconventional outlets to access my unconscious, okay? And there you go. By the way, got some secrets that are gonna come up in that one too. So, my Leo risings, we're dealing with a place, the Gemini part of your chart that deals with your patrons, your allies. These are the people, in a sense, they're like community, and in a sense, in one way, would support your hopes. Right? This is the 11th house. So we have this. So it's a group of people. Now you like to be seen, or you do the hidden Leo thing where you really want to be seen, but you don't know how to do it, so you're a little shy, because there's two different kinds of Leos out there. I always have to acknowledge this. But regardless, I think socializing is very important to you. And this place in your chart that deals with friends and community, your allies and patrons that support your hopes and wishes and dreams, and you know, the interaction that happens there, Uranus is coming in to throw a lightning bolt in that story. So I wrote this right here. Allies, patrons, different communities. I wrote different because of Uranus. And then this is the question I'm posing for you to meditate on. Do I fit into the quote-unquote group? Do you fit in the groups that you have now? Do they fit with you? Do all of a sudden, if Uranus is coming into the part of your chart that deals with, do you feel like you're going to be like, I'm sick of this group, you're going to rebel towards them just for rebelling's sake? Or you feel like you need to break free from the group? Or there's people that are representing this energy of wanting to bring in something new and shake you up coming into your group space. And how would you deal with that? And so my question is, for now, and there's a deeper story with this Uranus stuff. I'm going to make other Uranus and Gemini videos later in the year and next year, but I'm posing the question to you. Here's the question. Do I fit into the group? I wrote another little question against this, below it. Do I rebel against the group? Are you the representative of rebellion, or do you have to run from the group and find different groups to see where you fit, right? And so that's the initial question I'm posing to you. I think this is a big deal for you because you need people for mirroring and reflection and conversation in a positive way, right? So there's my Gemini question for you to ponder, all right? My Virgos who are Mercury ruled, my Virgo risings, this is, any time like Uranus being in the sign of Gemini, which is your fellow sign that's ruled by Mercury, it's going to deeply affect you, but in a different kind of way. For you, it's going to have to do with, it's your career house off the bat. I'm just going to say this. To put it simply, it's your career house. Now, we can look at this a different type of way. What belongs in this place too, whether it's the career you have for yourself or a job that you're working, but underneath it all, it has to do with your rep. It has to do with your reputation and your social status. It has to do with how you stand there, okay? And basically what I wrote here, my question, are you willing? This is what you have to ask yourself. Are you willing to shake up this part of your chart? Are you willing to shake up your reputation? Or do you have external resource? Like, could it be a boss that wants to shake up your established reputation? So basically what I'm telling you, for 7 years here, you're gonna have the planet Uranus playing a surprising, erratic, unconventional game in your career house, and you might have to reinvent yourself there. But before we jump in and you start worrying about stuff, because that's what you do sometimes, I'm giving you a break sometimes, okay? These days, you got eclipses happening, 2025 and 2026. I'm doing this video while a Mars and Virgo transit's happening. So you Virgo Risings, you get a hold of me for a session, okay, if you need it, because you're the ones right now, along with a couple other signs that I have had to listen to your past breaking apart, and some of the things you're trying to pick up the pieces right now, and you're in a transitional place. So I just want to throw in this extra thing for you. Now you have something that's going to be affecting your career house. What do you need to do and establish so you can understand the movement and surprising movement that could be happening here in the next 7 years? But we ask the question one more time. Are you willing to shake up your reputation? I'm putting the question and the power in your hands instead of having a feeling externally happening to you. That's the question I'm posing to you. I'm also going to say that if you know the reason, if you have a reason, a strong reason to change things up in that place, stick to your intention, and that will help you answer the question. Another bonus I'm going to give you is, as always, you're going to look at the way you work, the details of that, okay? And that has to do with Pluto and Aquarius in your chart, but I throw that little bonus for you, okay? All right, Libra Risings, an air sign dealing with a part of your chart that's another air sign, Gemini, okay? Uranus coming in here to bring an erratic energy there, but where in your chart is this? Well, this is happening in the place that you stand upon. And what I mean by that is what your truth is, your highest truth. This can also incorporate your spirituality, religious beliefs, right? Higher learning, this kind of thing. And Uranus here in this year, just for a little bit, is gonna kind of like give you a hint, a little surprise, like these fireworks. Are you gonna have fireworks out of the blue at random times in this part of your chart? Are you gonna be challenged philosophically? You will be. And you will be challenging other people this way too. And they might be surprised because of Libra Rising's need to always come across as chill and harmonized and wanting other groups of people to be harmonized and all that. And all of a sudden, you're sitting there in the room and you're the one that's letting off testing fireworks. Pause. No. You're the one who's gonna be let off shit out of the blue like this just happened to me. I'm taking a chance making this video. With the question I put here, I wrote, this place has to do with your spirituality, personal philosophy, ethics, law, divination. The scales of justice seek a change. Now, I didn't write that as a question, but will you be able to explore the basis of your truth and justice, which would mean it's the basis of how you run the scales in your life as a Libra rising. And the question is, would you be willing to disrupt your own personal truth or others that you're dealing with? And this is the game that is going to be played there. And Uranus is going to try to bring different ways for you to look at your personal truth, or you're debating this with the world and other people. And in a sense, the scales of justice that you rule and that how you function in the world are going to get topsy-turvy, but this is for good reason, I think. And Uranus comes in to liberate your scales, to get new pieces for your scales, and it's going to take a long time. But first, you need to question what you stand upon, what the scales that you have now have been built upon. Your code, your ethics, the law that you go by, right? Everything to this point in your life is built your personal Libra scales. And those scales are about to get rocked. You might as well be part of the process of rebuilding them, but you have to take chances here and you have to risk. And that means you have to be vocal about this. We know that you can be vocal in many ways to come across sweet and suave so it isn't caustic for people. But maybe you do need to be caustic. And maybe you do need to be and show up as the rebel in situations where you're testing your truth or other people's truths in the world. Bring in other modalities of faith, religion, study them, explore them. If you got to take a trip, do it. Hello, Scorpio Risings. Well, we're going to talk about something that in some ways you might be familiar with. It's death. Did you want to hear that? I'm going to get straight to the point with y'all because that's what you like and that's what I do on this channel, because the Scorpio Risings have a connection to my heart, and it's only because you show things to me and you tell me your secrets in client sessions or my friends. You seem to trust me. The reason is because I have Plutonian signatures in my chart, but I also have Scorpionic signatures in your chart. So in my chart, so there's this thing that we have on this channel, you and I, and I love it. But I say death because Uranus, the planet of shock and awe and rebellion, things that come out of the blue, that's hitting the part of your chart that deals with this. Am I saying death is going to come your way? Not really. Could be. But a lot of times the thing's connected to what this is. And I'm going to say on a story-based level and on a mundane level. I'll start with the story-based level. You know, a lot of times what we fear in our lives, what we don't know and what we cannot see, can scare us. And in a sense touches on the primordial place that deals with mortality and death, right? And what if I were to tell you that things would come in and out of the blue that would test you that way, that would actually kind of force you down a path of walking into the shadow world to confront your fears? And maybe it is even the fear of death of what that is, right? Now that's the internal story. The external story is when we deal with 8th house issues, is we're dealing with shared resources, we're dealing with taxes, inheritances, these things that are connected to death, but we're also dealing with how we deal with the one-on-one connections in our life that we find ourselves tied up into when it comes to money issues, the bank, and shared resources. So what I'm saying to you is Uranus is coming up to shake up this world, and you have to be prepared for this, and there's many different ways. I'm not going to give you some hardcore cold fatalistic thing that says you have an actual death coming your way in some sort of your life, but I'm using the old ways of looking at this positioning and the new ways and how they become to be intertwined, right? Most importantly, I don't think you're afraid in some senses because of your investigative, pinpointed, emotional, driven, obsessive quality about yourself to walk in uncharted territory and to go into places that most fear to go. But even then, fear does happen to you. And I think as a person, as a Scorpio rising, I think you eventually find the courage to deal with this place. But it's hard when it's unpredictable. It's hard when it shakes the foundations and shakes up your fears and exposes them to you. My question for you is, are you open to discussing your fears associated with shared resources? That's the easy candy way with this. But then I wrote deeper level, your fear of death and walking in the shadows. That's the other part of this. It's a question. You don't have to answer it right now, but I want you to ponder it. And most importantly, because this is the Gemini part of your chart, Mercury, wherever it is in your chart, will be needed to help you navigate this space, to communicate to yourself about it, or to those that you trust. And those that you trust and are intimate with, if they happen to be people that you do have shared resources with, it is inevitable that you will have to have the coldest at times, most honest, but liberating conversations with them or people, certain situations. This will come in and out of your chart for the next 7 years. Again, the question is, are you open to discussing? Now, I'm not going to finish the sentence. Scorpio risings in general will keep their cards close. So you're going to pick and choose what you're willing to show to somebody else. If that's you're already doing that on a surface level, and I'm talking about things that have to do with hidden fears in the shadows, you're not going to just tell anybody, but maybe you do. Maybe you're forced into a situation where you're going to have to share. There's a process to this, and I want you to start thinking about it, all right? Are you open to discussing your fears and walking in the shadow world associated with shared resources? I wrote on a deeper level, the revealing of secrets, walking, quote unquote, close to death. All right, that's my little something for you. My Sag risings, Your relationship world and how you view it is about to go through a 7-year upheaval. That's just what's going on. I basically want to tell you here that the question should ask yourself, there's a lot of questions you're gonna ask yourself next 7 years, by the way, when it comes to your relationships, your partnerships, if you're in a marriage, people that you don't get along with, all this type of stuff. Uranus is coming in here, and it's just like, it just has a mission to like make it unstable. But maybe you're the one that makes it unstable. Maybe you're the one that shakes it up, or it's represented by somebody else doing it, but it's taking on the role of this. And I also want you to think in ways of like alternative ways to deal with relationship structures in your life. And this is what Uranus is going to do in your 7th house. And the question I had a bunch here, but I wrote, in which way will you shake up your view and attachment to relationships, or vice versa? You know, people might do it to you. But I wrote, questioning your view and your sense of freedom in relationships. In a sense, what I'm saying is if relationship structures are changing, and you as a thrill seeker, as someone who's always pushing the boundaries of things, Sagittarius Rising, you know, might look at things differently. Will you question your freedom, or will someone question and impose, you know, limits on your freedom in relationships? Or you might be bringing this up to other people, and it could be people that you don't get along with. It's not just like intimate relationships, it's all types of partnerships. So the schematic here is to be able to adjust. Sometimes you're the one that's going to be rebelling, and other times others will show you the rebelling quality towards you, and you have to be willing to move back and forth. Good thing about you is you're a mutable fire sign, and you have that ability to move back and forth. But in a sense, Uranus wants to shake up something that's been rooted for a long time in your relationship house. So be prepared for 7 years of unconventional thinking there, different ways of viewing relationships, and the discussions that you're going to have there. The question is to question your view about your own relationships and your freedom in partnerships. And that's my question for you to ponder. The Capricorn Risings, you will be dealing with something here that it might really throw you off, and it has to do with how you build things in general. So, you know, this rebellious planet Uranus is coming to shake up the way you do your routines. And I mean, if we're generalizing about Capricorn Risings, I mean, your routines get you by, man. They help you build that little world that you're always constructing, the tasks that you need, the step-by-step process. How you do that is about to go through a little upheaval. I'll say you'll get hints of this year, but then you're going to have 7 years of this. It's really hard for a Earth sign, I think, in general. I'll say the 2 Earth signs. I think Taurus and Capricorn will have a lot of difficulty, in a sense, dealing with something that's grounded and rooted, organic and mundane, Earth-based, to be shaken up at any time. And when it comes to your routines, Capricorn Rising, you know, something needs to change there on a deep level. Well, Uranus is coming to do it. I wrote a question here for you to ponder. What will be your approach? I wrote this specifically, the words for you. What will be your approach to instability and surprise when it comes to your daily routines and your health? Health is connected to illness. If our routines or certain things are thrown off, or things come out of the blue with health-wise, how do we deal with it? How do we deal with not knowing the answers to the questions? How do we deal with like routines being uprooted and the questions that come about with that when you're so used to them being grounded and working for you? And if they're not all of a sudden, and things are shaken up there, what do you do with your mind? And so the question I wrote here, what will be your approach when it comes to instability and surprise when we deal with your daily routines in your health? Who do you serve and why? You get 2 questions, because this part of your chart also has to do with how you serve and how you work, and routines are part of that. So question right now, in a sense, you could say, I'm going to look at, are my routines working for me right now in my daily life? That's the quick, easy question, besides the philosophical one that I gave you. And just be open to that. You don't have to find the answers now, but as Uranus goes into Gemini, the lightning bolt of a question comes in. The lightning bolt of Uranus brings Gemini story, which will bring questions. Gemini's a thinker. It will question things. It will look for the answers to the questions. It will look for alternative answers to the questions. There will be a bunch of questions that come up. And it's key for you to be able to move like that, to move from here to there, from one answer that could be the truth to the other answer that can be the truth, and then how that applies to your daily work world, the way you serve your work, your daily routines. And let's be real. I'm going to be real about this, of how you deal and view with your health. Clean house, clean mind is very important here. And so if you can bring in tools into your daily routine that keep your mind level, and if you notice some of the things that you used to think about or that had to do with your mindset are not functioning the way they are, the way they used to, Uranus is coming in to shake that whole thing up. Keep it simple this year. Question your routines. All right, Aquarius Rising, you're, I think, going to love this Uranus transit because it's in a fellow air sign of Gemini. It has to do with the place that deals with creativity, what gives you pleasure, your sex, children. Not saying they're hand in hand, but that's how it works in the world. You have sex, then children happen, or people do things that deal with sex, and there's different ways of having children. I just don't want to knock anybody for nothing. There's different ways of doing this. Regardless, kids belong there. But most importantly, I think it has to do with how you derive pleasure and how you deal with types of creativity and the way you do it. As I hear this beautiful bird in the background, it's very unique, isn't it? Let's see if it does it again. There it is. Yeah, you know, I appreciate uniqueness in the bird world, in the animal world, and there's so many different kinds, right? And they all have their ways of languaging and expressing themselves, like this bird that we heard. And that's what's kind of happening here with Uranus here in this creativity house of yours. The languaging that happens there, how you express in the different ways. And I think this comes naturally to you in a sense, being an Aquarius rising, of being different, being nonconformist in the end. Even though you seek traditional things, when you get them, then you got to break them apart. It drives you crazy. You almost have to customize them for yourself. Even though you want traditional models, that's your dilemma in life, by the way, is that kind of thing. But again, this part of your chart here is, I think, risk taking is going to be coming in your way with Uranus, because Uranus likes to play risk. Uranus is a chaos maker. If it was a person coming into a party and you saw Uranus coming, pretty much get it in your head that it's going to be chaotic, it's going to be trickster quality, and it's being in Gemini, so you might as well multiply that by 10. That type of electric, unpredictable power and energy is hitting your creative house. So the question I have for you to think about, to pose to yourself is, what are your thoughts about unabashedly expressing yourself, right? Risk-taking. What are your thoughts about unabashedly expressing yourself? Think about that. Unabashedly. No limits. Not giving an F. Just like, this is what I am today, or this is what I have to say, or this is what I'm going to produce, or this gives me pleasure, or this feels good. And what if you were locked in some way as a stubborn, fixed rising sign that you are? But what if you had the need all of a sudden to break free? That this interesting demeanor sometimes Aquarius Rising has about, they're kind of solid and fixed and a little detached, and they have their own autonomous space, or they're seeking that, right? Or there's one traditional part of their life and the other part, they got to have their space, and it's got to have high ceilings and lots of oxygen, okay, to do their thing. And by the way, if you have a creative space in your life, lots of windows, big space, even if it's a small room, don't clutter the room, okay? Because Aquarius Risings need this, and the Gemini part of your chart needs this, and this is what Uranus is coming in to shake up for 7 years. But initially, we want you to ask the question one more time. What are your thoughts about unabashedly expressing yourself? Think on that one, because you got Pluto in your first house for the next 20 years, and this year for a brief moment, but really next year, Pluto in your first and your creative house, sex house, your fifth Gemini, Uranus and Pluto will be doing this together for several years. They go hand in hand. You Aquarius Risings and the Gemini Risings have a special story going on the next couple of years. I have a chart filled with Aquarius and Gemini. It's already happening to me. Trust me with this question, but don't be afraid. I don't think you're an afraid type of person, but don't be afraid if something comes out of the blue that's going to test your creativity, and all of a sudden you're like, I can't show this side of myself. There's no way. If I were to do this and express myself this way, what's the world going to think? I built up this whole stoic demeanor, this whole certain something in my life, but what if I were to completely rock that and completely show a different side of myself? And I just did that every Tuesday. Or I did it randomly in Tuesdays for 6 months, or a random hour, and no one knew what I was going to do, or I didn't even know I was going to do it with myself. What if you lived that kind of life? What if you did something like that unabashedly? Okay, you feel what I'm saying? All right. So Pisces Rising. All right. You've gone through a lot, I think, the last couple years with the Saturn transit happening and Neptune happening in your ascendant. You're not done with it for the 2025 into the spring of 2026. You've had to do a lot of work and reconstruction in your world. I just want to acknowledge that. Saying that, this planet Uranus is coming into a place in your world that is foundational, and it depends on your attachment to the past, to family, to home, and what that is, because the planet Uranus is going to shake this whole place up. Will you take on the role of Uranus in the family part of your life or the past memory situation? Will you be the rebel there? Will you go against what you were taught supposedly what to do, or where you come from? Or will you reclaim the fire, stealing the fire like Prometheus does? Will you reclaim the fire in the part of your chart that deals with your past, ancestry, and home? The other thing about Uranus is it's erratic. It changes out of the blue. Do you have a stable place to live? Does it seem like that way? Or will you be on an adventure here where you're going to have to redefine and rethink the way you look at what home is? It literally could be you moving every couple years. Or it could be that, you know, you're couch surfing for a while. It could be that just family members in your life are playing that role. That's in the physical universe with Uranus shaking this up. But again, it's the foundation part of the chart, and it supports the rest of the chart. It's where we come from. And the key thing you have to ask yourself here is, what is home? Now, I also will say this is a very special thing. The fourth house in the chart has to do with father. And a lot of times with father archetypes, or who played the role of father. And so a lot of times with like a transit like Uranus comes in, there's discussions about this with other family members. It could be discussions that happen with father itself. It could be things about the family structure that you never knew about, that all of a sudden Uranus cracks open and there's things that are discussed, Gemini, messages, Gemini, things that come up from some sort of vault or place or hidden place in the bottom of part of your chart. And how are you going to deal with that as a Pisces rising and the psychic energetic connection to all of that? Now, the question I wrote here, I don't want to forget, property, I want to say this, property, father, memories, the past. I wrote here, are you the disruptor in the family or is the disruptor? That's a side question. I wrote, home and family stories will be important and discussed, and things will surprise revealments from the past. How are you affected by these stories? How will you be affected by these stories? How will you deal with these stories? Again, it's the story of home. I gave you a bunch of different questions there. Some of you already know what I'm talking about. Some of you are already dealing with this because you had the Jupiter transit for the last year in Gemini come through and trigger this part of your chart. And it's in a part of your chart that triggers 3 other big places in your chart: your relationship house, your career chart, and who you are as a Pisces rising going into the world. All those 4 places now will be triggered again by Uranus for 7 years here. But initially, you have to ponder the question about what home is, right? And are you willing? Are you willing to be different? Are you willing to go with unconventional flows with your definition of home and family? And are they willing to do that too? And you have to know, and you have to get it in your brain, in your world, that it will change and change again, and seem to throw you off. When one is thrown off, when one is thrown off their, let's say, centering place, your first reaction is to find the home place, the rock to hold on to, right? And if things are erratically changing there, how good are you with that? And where is home then? So if, let's say, physical home changes and you have to live somewhere temporarily for a while, then that would be home, wouldn't it? And let's say you were somewhere for 2 weeks, hanging out at a friend's place because you needed that 2 weeks. Well, that would be home for that time being, wouldn't it? this doesn't just go with you. It deals with other people. I do want to be real with you here. I think this is a difficult placement at times when you're not used to it, because it depends on your attachment to what home is and what family members are. There's a discussion of things that are going to happen with family. They're very important. It usually, you know, family stuff is complex. Whether there's a family or not, the stories are always complex. Even if it seems like you have a great, perfect family life, there's always other people to deal with, and parents and their stories, or if your parents aren't around anymore, the stories that linger and come up. This is what happens, right? Are you able to roll with the punches here? Since you're the last sign, you know, of how this works, you're like the last part of my video, I want to say that exploring poetry and creative writing, when it comes to your past, even if you, let's say you were to do an exercise like you were to write a fictional short story about where you would come from, but you would kind of change it on its head. You wouldn't use the real characters in your life. You would use fictional characters, but they represented the parts of your real life story, family life, and father, whatever else. Is a really good exercise because it will give you a different way of looking at all this. So it's like you step out. It's like if I was watching your family life and then I was going to document watching your family life and you in it for 2 weeks, and I got to just be there the whole time with my camera. I got a camera, but I got to document anything, and then I wrote the story of what I saw. Right? This is a good exercise because you step out of an entrenched position there, and it gives you a different viewpoint. I want to give you this bonus thing. Second, or lastly, the changes. I'm here. If it throws you for a loop, I'm here. I'm a Gemini. More than that. But if it seems like there's no rock, I'm here. Okay? All right. That's it for my quick view of Uranus and Gemini. I did it differently with posed questions, okay? You got to learn to be the rebel. Some of us know how to do this, to be chaos and embrace chaos and rebellion in our lives. When we have things that are stuck and they become conformed, Uranus's way is to break and to be nonconformist. It's a revolutionary planet. I didn't use a word here the whole time I did this video for each sign. And the reason is I don't think it happens down the line in this transit here for Uranus and Gemini for 7 years. Again, we enter this here in the middle of 2025. It's there for 3 or 4 months. It goes away. It doesn't really kick in until next spring. Okay? Do I tell you what that final word is? I'll give you a hint. It starts with an L. And I won't reveal this word until a future video when you're ready. But first, ponder the questions I gave for each sign, okay? Ponder it. I appreciate you. Thanks for getting through this. I'm really good with working one-on-one with people. I'm really good with Uranus stuff because it's so prevalent in my chart. I have a Mercury-Uranus exact trine partile. It's huge, surprising, like that. That's how it pops off in my world. That firework out of the blue, that's my Mercury and Gemini with Uranus trining it. I lived this since the day I was born. I'm ready for this transit. I've been waiting for this transit for 30 years for Uranus to enter my world and my sign. I'm ready to roll, and I'm riding the lightning. If you're connected with me, if you're looking for some insight like this, talk to the trickster, talk to the charmer, and I'll help you and go in the right direction. I'll see you later.